This is a City AM Studios production.
Hello and welcome back to Business as Usual with me, Martin Kimber.
And me, Matt Kenyon. Coming up on the podcast today, motorists may miss out on compensation as the city watchdog U-turns on a chunk of its landmark motor finance ruling.
A former senior civil servant in Margaret Thatcher's administration gives us her view on Andy Burnham's plans for a number 10 in the north.
Plus, we get stuck into the latest edition of the City AM magazine with one of its editors. Happy Friday, Business as Usual fans. We've made it to the end of another week. It looks like we are heading into a fairly glorious weekend, but don't you worry. We have got some cold, hard corporate news for you to see in the weekend.
That's a way to set up an episode. There you go. Everyone's going to keep listening now.
So the Financial Conduct Authority, the most summary of all the watchdogs, the city watchdog, it has announced this week it's suspending parts of its £9 billion motor finance ruling. This was after a pretty venomous response from industry and consumer groups. It's been a big topic. It's one which has been, I would say, a hyperfixation of our senior city reporter, Sam Norman. He joins us now. Sam, it must be such a dream come true to be talking about motor finance.
Well, yeah, there was that sense. So, for those of you who don't know, this is something that relates to the idea of a secret commission deal between car brokers and lenders that left consumers out of the dark. So there was this ruling that if the consumers weren't aware of how much commission the brokers were getting, it was illegal. Now, this travelled all the way through the court system. It went to the Court of Appeal, who gave a massive ruling, shockwaves across the city, as they ruled in favour of the consumers. That was eventually partially overturned by the Supreme Court, but sort of upheld it for them as well. It was a real lukewarm win for the banks, and it left the door open for this industry-wide redress scheme. And we've seen over the last year just back and forth on this, and now, forced to suspend parts of it.
So I suppose, where did the biggest parts of the backlash come from? Who was most incensed by the original $9 billion scheme?
It wasn't the motorists who were in line for a payout.
Well, it was, funnily enough. So there's a real split between this. You've got the industry groups, so people who are exposed to this. You're thinking Lloyds, you're thinking Santander, Close Brothers, a specialist motor finance lender. But you've also got manufacturers who have their own financial services arm. So this is Mercedes-Benz with their financial services arm, Volkswagen with their financial services arm. So the banks actually, so Lloyds is on the hook with £2 billion with this. They don't want this to go for another legal challenge. They just want it to get it out of the way. They're ready to pay up. The manufacturers, who aren't really used to these mass scale redress things, they want to challenge this. They want to bring their overall bill down. Now, on the flip side of this, the consumers, they don't think the redress has gone far enough. They think they're owed more. So the actual redress, I think it averaged out £829 per consumer for what the payout they were going to get. They want more.
So no one's happy.
No one's happy. So the FCA is actually facing 4 legal challenges. 3 are from manufacturers. They include Mercedes-Benz and Volkswagen. And 1 is a big group one from Consumer Voice, which is representing a bunch of motorists who believe they should be getting more money. So regardless of what way this goes, I don't know how this scheme can carry on as it is, but this scheme was already a negotiation and a watered-down version of a previous one that they tried to do in October last year. So this was like the final rules it published in March, and no one's happy.
What is it about this particular redress scheme? Because there are always sort of lawsuits that then open floodgates, that then leave the floodgates open to more lawsuits about certain issues. What is it about this that keeps it just rumbling on and on and on?
I guess it just must affect everyone. Like, I think of how many motorists are in the UK, and the time span for what this covers. It's a decade window of people who didn't even realise, and still to this day, people don't even realise if they're exposed to it. I mean, you must have seen the marketing campaigns that some of these law firms go on. I don't drive, and I have texts once every couple of days saying you could be owed compensation.
You just get unsolicited texts?
Yes, it happen all the time.
I was about to say, wait, you don't drive?
I don't drive.
Is your number on a list somewhere? Like, why are you
everywhere? maybe that's a separate problem. But,
have you been signing up?
You'll hear it on the radio, on YouTube ads, and maybe I've just got like the cookies of because I'm always googling motor finance. I get the ads for it too. But the FCA has actually gone on the offensive and has threatened to really crack down on some of these firms that are aggressively marketing to consumers that they can abandon a scheme and come through them, and they'll get the full compensation. It's a real back and forth from so many players, from the manufacturers to the banks to the consumers to the motorists. There's so many moving parts.
In slightly happier news, let's talk about Currys. They've just posted some pretty encouraging looking results. Some bright spots there.
Currys and Jing. Simon Hunt would have made that work.
So Simon Hunt would have had a retort with a sort of a quintuple layered pun. Can you compete with that, Sam?
Even compete with that? But you know what? It is some positive news. I mean, it's no secret. I think the high street's been pretty a bruising time with consumer sentiment, and especially this first 6 months of this year. I mean, basically all the start of this year was the Iran war and how that damaged sentiment. But Currys themselves said they've had stronger sales, and I think their quote was in a subdued consumer backdrop, which is quite encouraging. If they're saying, yes, we know it's bad, but it's good for us.
It's interesting with Currys. What do you think has made... Because in my head, if I'm ranking all of the shops which I think will be struggling most, I always instinctively think that hardware electronics shop should be doing quite badly. What is it about their approach which has made them weather this storm?
There's a few moving parts. I think the demand for AI tech has really been a big factor in this, and that's what Currys has put it down to. And also a lot of gaming launches. So, Martin, you'll know this one. The Nintendo Switch 2?
Yes.
Is that this year?
Oh, that came out last year.
Is that a sequel to the Nintendo Switch?
Yes, for those computer games, Matt.
Computer games.
But I think one thing that Currys does really well is their TV competitions. Like, I won a TV from Currys during the last football thing that was happening. I know there's a football thing going on now.
There is.
But there was a 1 in 20 chance of winning your money back if you bought a television during the World Cup, and I did, and I put my receipt number in, and I won a grand's worth of telly back. So,
you know what? Ironically, in these results for the last year, every category grew apart from consumer electronics, and Currys put that down to soft demand for TVs. So maybe if they stop giving so many away for free to people like you,
TVs.
Right, very quickly. Speaking of football, now I was on the train on Wednesday when the England match began.
Very patriotic.
But I watched it though on my free television, and I was surrounded by people on their phones watching the England game on the train. Now, apparently, I wasn't the only one.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting uptick. Obviously, we've got this new research from O2 that's showing highest ever mobile traffic during the England game. It's no surprise, is it? I think these sort of companies, you forget who's going to benefit from something like a World Cup. I mean, naturally, you go to the pubs and think, the pubs are going to be the biggest beneficiaries. But there's a lot of moving parts to these things.
Well, they've broken it down by app. Virgin Media O2 have broken this down by app. Tinder users fell by 36%. Wow. So no one was swiping.
I've got two hands.
Not where I was.
TikTok traffic mostly sort of fell off at kickoff. Yeah. I mean, they've got all that. But it's granular data.
It was 5 o'clock, so it was a rush hour match where presumably a lot of people who might have been planning to watch it just were caught a bit short.
4:45. The usage for food delivery apps went up to 68% of everyone ordering in their football food.
And obviously, tipping into this weekend, we've got the 1 a.m. match into Monday morning. That is going to put interesting pressure on a lot of people. So, like the pressure of do you stay up? Do you let your kids stay up? There are going to be pubs. I know that, our colleague Mauricio was reporting this, pubs kicking people out at half-time because of licensing rules.
Well, I think we just saw on Thursday as well, the councils have been the ones now left to decide whether they get permission to stay open late. So it's going to cause
a controversial
widespread mix of what we're going to get across the country.
I'm sure all British councils are going to make the pro-growth decision in every case. I have full confidence in our local politicians.
God save the king.
Will you two be watching the England match on crack of...
Absolutely not.
Not crack before dawn.
I'd love to, but there's only one thing I'm more loyal to than the England football team, and that's the 7 a.m. RNS.
The FTSE Live blog. Well, God bless you, Sam. And people can read all your work at the actual crack of dawn on the FTSE Live blog.
God save the king. God save the FTSE Live blog.
We'll have you back very soon.
Thank you, guys.
Now, it feels like a lifetime ago that Andy Burnham gave that speech announcing a massive programme of devolution and moving the levers of power out of London. Caroline Slowcock was the private secretary to Margaret Thatcher and worked very closely with her, and she's just published her second book, Bad Government. Our politics and economics reporter Mauricio Alencar caught up with her a little earlier and asked about Burnham's plans for a number 10 in the north.
I think one of the things he's trying to do by devolving more is to kind of join up government, because it tends to be very siloed, as people say in the jargon, which means it works in different parts and doesn't talk to each other. So, I think that's his instinct by devolving. But the danger of setting up a number 10 in the north is that you end up sidestepping the rest of government. And actually, the centre of government, one of its critical functions is to join up the way government works. And central government is still going to be there. It's still going to have an enormous influence on the devolved regions. So I think he may actually find that he has to spend more time in London doing that than he will do in Manchester.
So he won't deliver on his...
Oh, I think he will. I think he will try. I hope, one hopes. My book starts with Starmer's speech on the step to number 10, and I was hopeful then. So I hope that these words will come, to fruition. But I think that the job of the Prime Minister is to orchestrate the whole of government as well as, running the country. And Manchester, I think, is a nice piece of symbolism, and maybe it will be important. But one of the things about Manchester, because I once had a head office in Manchester in one of my roles, is it's a very hard place to get to from other parts of the country apart from London. If you're trying to come from the West Country, for example, it's a really difficult thing. So it's not necessarily going to be the best way to communicate with the rest of the country.
And finally, City AM has the latest edition of its magazine out this week. If you haven't seen it yet, it is going to be all around London. You will see it around train stations, all sorts of places, all in public. To speak about it now, we have one of its editors, Adam Bloodworth.
Hello.
Adam.
Welcome to your debut on the podcast.
I don't think we've had
This
you on
is my
before.
podcast debut. It's very
So
exciting.
exciting.
It's very exciting. Thanks for having me and the magazine.
Well, it's a very exciting edition that we've all been leafing through over the last week. I know there's quite a few we want to get onto. What's your favourite story in the magazine?
The story that I feel like could have made a nice cover story was the story about co-living and kind of the weird way in which society is starting to think about how houses don't have to be 2.4 families anymore, and how actually people can live together with strangers and live with friends, and that not be a weird quirk or something you do in your 20s, but how it's something you can do in your 30s and 40s and 50s.
This is such a fun piece. So this is yourself and also our colleague Anna Maloney went and tried out a couple of co-living spaces. I think there was one in Canary Wharf, one in Battersea.
Yeah.
What was that like? Did it sort of challenge any preconceptions you had of what it would be like as an adult going back and doing uni-style living?
I think, it's socially acceptable to live in communal living style places until you're 25 at uni. Maybe you're doing a postgrad or a doctorate. And then from 55, there's this big rise in kind of posh retirement facilities where, older ages, golden year living, and, there's huge expenses tied to these places.
To which I aspire.
To which, but there's this sort of 25 to 55-year-old gap where it's still stigmatized, and I think now that's changing. Lots of data is showing that there's a huge explosion in the development of these new co-living facilities, and the thing that makes them an interesting story is for most people they do sound like hell on earth. It's dorm style accommodation.
You share a bathroom.
You don't share a bathroom. You have a bathroom. You have a kitchen, but your bed sheets are probably going to smell like sausages if you're cooking sausages,
it's all the same space.
or bacon, because your bed is a metre from the kitchen. So me and Anna Maloney, who works on features here as well, went and did a couple of weeks in these. We moved up. They came to us and said, look, we'll do it, but we need to stay for a while. We need to bed in, and
Literally.
And so we spent a couple of weeks living in these places and meeting them. And what was interesting was that there was the kind of village weirdos. There was this village feel that I think you lack when you're house sharing in London, because of the transients and the fact that everyone's sort of in and out all the time. But the nature of living in one building with all these people, sort of a bit of a pressure cooker feeling. There was that kind of student campus vibe of you get to know people.
And what is the price benefit to living there versus, say, like an apartment?
So it's expensive, and that's why, again, it's an interesting story because they're not cheap. They're selling the dream of community, and we all know that, there's lots of horrendously isolated people in London, and they're selling this dream of community that they start from about 1,700, 1,800 a month. So they're not cheap for a box. The rooms
that smells of sausages.
That smells like sausages. It's an expensive fry up.
Authentic sausage smell.
It's an expensive fry up, and there's a line from Anna so we wrote it kind of. We both shared thoughts on the page separately, conversation style. There's a line from Anna where she's sort of saying, it feels like the room is doing everything it can to get you out and into the communal spaces, and I think that's fairly accurate. And there's rooftop pools, there's saunas, there's cinema rooms that are really luxe. They really are providing this new template for kind of how we can all potentially live together. And I think the bottom line for me was I've always been very extroverted. Anna's quite introverted, so it was quite fun, kind of millennial Gen Z kind of perspectives on this. The bottom line for me was if I moved to Madrid tomorrow, I'd sign me up. I'd do it immediately. In London, there's too much to lose. I've got great housemates. I'm 37. I still love living with housemates. So that's why it's interesting to me as a story. But there's too much to lose, I think, for me. But it's interesting. I can't quite get it out of my mind.
Well, the good thing about the magazine is that there is a much higher word count in a lot of these stories than there is in a lot of the newspaper articles that you're probably used to reading in City AM. Very charitably, you've let Simon Hunt write something, who normally sits in that seat.
He asked very politely, and we obliged.
And he's written about falling back in love with the iPod, which I've sort of predicted for a long time would go the same way as the vinyl kind of craze, which is people miss a machine that does sort of one thing. You know, our phones, our computers, their music players, their cameras. I mean, they're everything these days. So, I mean, it's quite a romantic kind of retrospective look at that really awesome wheel that it had. You know, they really did reinvent the wheel. I really like that.
And also there's something, I think he's written about this, something about the permanence of just owning the rights to songs. I think that's going to be a big question.
Yeah.
Well, as everything, all these sort of marketplaces, be they for like video games or songs.
PlayStation literally the other day said no more discs.
Whereas like, if that server shuts down, or if like my Spotify shuts down, then like everything ever curated or collated goes. You've got no ownership over that. You've got So there's something very, very interesting to be said about falling back in love with the iPod.
Yeah, it's similar to kind of how we publishing a photo on Instagram on the grid sort of legitimizes it in a weird way, and in the same sense, owning a song legitimizes it and makes it feel like we own it and makes it feel like it exists. There's some crazy stats around the amount of, I think we don't look at 2/3 of the photos that we take on our phones.
I do make a point to print them out. I get them printed in about A2 size. They're quite big, and I put them up on the wall, and I think that makes them sort of makes them worth more.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? The sort of part of the narrative of kind of how we make feeling like we own something, feeling like we belong, feeling like we have ownership over something, which is clearly important to us as humans. And yeah, it's a lovely piece as well. Simon writes really, really beautifully. Actually, he's got a really natural style of writing. So, but do we need to do a quick sell on kind of the magazine?
Yeah, go. I was going to ask actually. Yeah, what's your pitch? Because the magazine's been going quite a while. Was this issue number 90 or 91, I think?
This is 91. It's been going. So I actually saw this magazine in about 2017, 2018, years ago, way before I worked here. And I don't know. So I suppose it's nice that it's one of the last sort of freemium magazines you can still find out on the street. You know, boring stuff out there. Like, you know, the cost of paper is high and astronomical, and most of our competitors can't produce this anymore. So we're really lucky to be able to put out a 100-page luxury glossy magazine. Well, it's actually got this beautiful matte finish, which is quite rare. Beautiful masthead.
It's a really premium feeling product for something that's free.
It's gorgeous, and
in this economy,
well,
that's no bad thing.
Well, just to end, the absolute bonus feature in this quarter's edition has to be Adam Bloodworth on a horse, which is just Matt Hardy's in the corner there.
Can an ordinary bloke.
Adam playing polo, which is just the best picture. I think we ought to get that framed for the
Was that inspired by the latest series of Rivals?
Popularised in Rivals, currently available on your favourite streaming platforms. Great fun to try and do a fish out of water piece on, like, can an ordinary bloke play polo? Turns out no. Spoiler alert, but yeah, really good fun. And I think the great thing about this magazine is how eclectic it is. There's all sorts of, there's food, drink, travel, weird world. We've had love letters to electricity pylons. We've had all sorts of weird stuff in here, and it's just a real privilege to be able to deputy edit it. It's great fun.
Well, for God's sake, London, pick it up. It's all over the place. Look for it. It's out there and it's free.
Or write to us and we'll send you one.
Yeah.
Adam, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I'm sure. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, that's just about all we have time for today and for this week. Thank you very much for listening to Business as Usual.
If you do just two things this weekend, make them downloading our free app and subscribing to our newsletters. Do that for us. They're both free.
Well, You won't hear my voice on Tuesday because I'm taking a day off, but I'm sure Matt and Simon will keep you well informed of everything. Don't forget to download our free app. As Matt says, it's just the same as all the expensive ones, except ours is free. Look out on Monday for a special episode of Business as Usual, where Maisie Grice, our investment reporter, will be speaking to the UK boss of the biggest brokerage firm in the world, Charles Schwab, about the stock market and investing so far this year. So you can hear that at 6 a.m. on Monday. But
For God's sake, don't miss it.
Don't miss it. But for now, goodbye.
Goodbye.